Hi, Saint Anselm. My name is Amanda Brahm, and I graduated from the honors program back in 2012. I'm now an attorney, and I work at the Carlton Fields, Connecticut office, and I practice labor and employment and education law. As I'm sure you'd guess, both of those practice areas have been particularly active during COVID, so I'm going to speak with you all today not only about the changes that I've noticed in the legal industry, but also how the industries that I service have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. As for the legal industry, the notion of working from home was initially met with some pretty strong resistance, and I think that resistance stemmed primarily from the fact that we'd never done this before. Attorneys are traditionally expected to work in their offices day in and day out with their teams, and working from home really is not an accommodation that was either offered or utilized by a lot of attorneys. And I think generally that structure of being present in the office does make a lot of sense because the practice of law is an inherently collaborative practice, and lawyers are most effective when they do work in a team. It would actually be really difficult for me to imagine working through a thorny legal issue or encountering a new emotion that I'd never written before without being able to bounce around ideas with my colleagues and get the benefit of their experience and wisdom. It can save you a lot of time and effort if you are talking to a colleague who has recently written a motion similar to the one you have to write. They can give you a great jumping off point. And I think that's probably why we don't see a ton of solo practitioners right out of law school, because you really do need that mentorship and even that peer-to-peer feedback, someone that you can just walk down the hall and say, hey, have you seen this before? Does this look weird to you? And sort of ask your silly questions without wasting a lot of time and going down a lot of rabbit holes to try to figure it out yourself. And I think that the legal industry recognizes that and knows that your work product only benefits and is only stronger when you work with others. And they've long feared that unless you're in the office getting that real face time, that collaboration just won't happen. And as a result, your work product will suffer. However, COVID obviously didn't leave firms or lawyers with much of a choice. And I think that the firms that adapted to these changed circumstances, as opposed to the law firms that just tried to outlast the pandemic and were hoping that the virus threat would subside and then they could go back to their old ways, have not fared as well as the firms that have adapted and have implemented new technologies and really changed the way that they practice. And what adapting has meant in my practice is, like I said, really incorporating a lot of new technology. For instance, we now do Zoom client meetings, we do Zoom court hearings, and we even do Zoom internal meetings instead of meeting in person. And I think what we're finding is that this is actually making us more efficient than we even were before. Not only are we obviously cutting down on travel time with, no one's flying to California for a deposition or going to New York to have an oral argument at the Second Circuit. We're also really forced to plan our days out much further in advance, plan our tasks, figure out who we need to talk to, whose thoughts we need on certain issues a lot further out than we used to, which only increases our efficiency. For instance, if I need to connect with a partner about an issue we're working on together, or I need him to review some, work product that I've finished, I no longer have to sort of hover outside of his office waiting for him to free up. I can just go ahead and send him a Zoom invitation at a time that's mutually agreeable for both of us, and check that box right off instead of getting 7 fake cups of coffee waiting for him to hang up the phone so I can catch him. So in that way, I definitely feel that I've become more efficient, and also that I'm just maximizing my time during the day much more. And my prediction is that many of these changes are definitely here to stay in the legal industry. I think we're only becoming better lawyers and servicing our clients' needs even better than we were before. So I'll just briefly speak a bit about the COVID reactions that I've observed in the industries that I work with. Particularly, our education clients have just been so resilient and resourceful throughout all of this. Over the summer, I was continuously impressed when I was working with schools on their revisions to their student handbook, their student expectations agreements, and also their plans to bring students back to campus and do so safely. And I think this is something you're all now intimately familiar with. Schools have started implementing smartphone apps where you do your self-COVID screening. You can also do contact tracing with these apps, and schools have implemented all sorts of warning programs, different flags for viral loads on campus, things like that. And this was technology that wasn't even contemplated in February 2020, let alone designed and let alone implemented. And schools have implemented this technology, and they've done so effectively. And I think we can see the effects of that right now on campuses. We're having some in-person classes. Students are living on campus, and we're containing the spread. And that's a credit to all the schools that worked so hard this summer to get these policies in place and get new technology in place. So I think in a lot of ways, COVID was actually an unexpected push to build an infrastructure at many schools and at many businesses that didn't previously exist or didn't have this infrastructure in place. And while I think it's unlikely that a lot of these institutions would have, willingly on their own accord made these investments right now, I think now that they're here, they're really going to benefit us all in very real ways going forward. I see these technological investments expanding geographic reaches of schools and businesses, creating additional business opportunities, and also making accommodations for disabilities possible in the future that just weren't economically feasible before. We now have Zoom classes, we have classroom aids that just wouldn't have been cost effective to put in place. So in that way, it's been a huge benefit. And while COVID obviously continues to be a significant challenge in our lives and probably will be for some time to come in both our professional and personal lives, I really do believe that this too shall pass, and the progress that we've all made is going to endure longer than the virus, and it's going to have significant positive implications, going forward in the future. If anyone would like to continue this conversation or has any questions for me, please feel free to reach out to me at Carleton Fields at any time. And I wish you all the best with the continuation of this semester. And thank you so much for having me.